would it have any connection with such a thing as that?
Well, I'm just wondering if it could have been experimental models.
Well,
he's been working at it for some time.
Yes, that's true. But wait, before we get on to that, let me just conclude our report from down there, and then I'd like to take that up because there's a nasty one. And then that. I don't think those machines are made to dissolve, are they?
Not quite.
No.
To the contrary.
Nor also do they give out with some kind of plastic or something.
No, they give out with flame.
With flame, too, yeah. Well, this was definitely coal, if these reports are to be believed, in each case, incidentally. Because number 3 here, he thought, the fellow who saw it, he thought that this was a flaming airplane came around the corner of the hill. This one we investigated. Well, anyhow, to conclude this part, Eddie Schonenberger happened to be looked back up at the trees from the direction in which number 3 had come before it had apparently crashed in the swamp, and he said, look at that. And there was a whole treetop knocked off, and several other branches, all recently shattered, and almost make a hole through the top of the trees.
Was there any odor around there?
No, because we were 5-6 days off. This was about a week after the other one had occurred. Because
well, wasn't there, I think I heard that there was the local editor of the newspaper or one of the members of the police department went over and got down on the ground on all fours, and he noticed that there was still some stench remaining there?
As a matter of fact, first of all, the people reported it at Flatwoods. Then the posse went up, and they were so nauseated, they wanted to get out of there as quick as possible, and they said it was absolutely overpowering. In the meantime, the road patrol was unable to come because they were investigating number 3, but the local police arrived from Braxton County, it's not Saxon County, I'm sorry, from the town of Sutton. They got down on their hands and knees. They didn't have to. They noticed the smell, and the very charming gentleman I met down there, the owner of the Republican paper, there's 2, it's a Republican and Democratic paper. The head of the Democratic paper was deeply interested in this, and he brought Mrs. May and the young fellow whose name I can't remember up to New York for a show, I think with Ed Sullivan or something here on this. And they were gone while we were down there. But this other gentleman had personally been up there that night, because he's very, very much alive to local affairs and happenings, and he was up there right smart during the night, and he smelt it too. But the next morning, there was a lot of confusion. There's always red herrings drawn across these things. A lot of people started turning up, and they said that the grass there was covered with oil. Well, it wasn't. All the grass there is covered with a kind of oil. It's called oil grass or tar grass. You can pass your hand over a whip of it when it's growing and pull it up, and your hand will be sticky afterwards and has a rather lovely aromatic smell. That, I am assured by all the local people there, had nothing whatsoever to do with this perfectly ghastly stench which had occurred from this plane, this thing or whatever it was that landed. Well, just to round up this whole thing, Walter, and for the benefit of our friends down there who want to hear this report on tape, there are certain aspects of the whole phenomena which are of great interest, and that is this, that at that particular time, which was September, I think 1953 or 52, I can't remember, there had been some enormous forest fires in Texas, Louisiana, Alabama. And we were receiving in New York here even a very high smoke count in the air. In fact, we had a haze, you recall it, and we had white ash land. Point number 1. Point number 2 on this particular score, all of which was pointed out to me by the chemist down there, that block of hills over which these objects came looked down into a series of valleys running parallel. And those valleys are filled with coal mines which are belching smoke all the time. Monsanto chemical plant and other enormous chemical plants and other installations for which that part of the country is famous, belching smoke and carbonaceous gases of all kinds. The wind happened to be blowing straight up these valleys, up this mountain. There was the smoke from the forest fires, there was all this accumulation, and there was a barrier of carbonaciously filled air rising at the heads of these valleys. But object number 1 and object number 6 were to the left and right of that area, and they seemed to have got away. And as it was pointed out to me that all the others, it looked as if as soon as they hit a highly polluted atmosphere, something went wrong with either, if they were animals, their breathing, if they were machines with their air intake, or something. In other words, that if they are extraterrestrial creatures of one kind or another, they were apparently doing a swoop down into our atmosphere to take a look, see, and then go in formation and go on up again. And what actually happened was they hit some of the wrong kind of air, and something went wrong with them. They went out of control. The Flatwoods one was able to land and have a look around to see what had happened to his colleagues or where he was. Numbers 2 and 3 hit hills, fell out of control, and number 5, number 3 and 4, and number 5 blew up in the air. Come to the end of what I had to say, really. There's an enormous amount more to it, which I could go on almost indefinitely, but I think that's enough detail for anybody to be asked to absorb at one go. My personal opinion, I'd just like to throw in, is that those none of those people were telling lies, those from Flatwoods especially, that the 400-odd other people whom we interviewed, including the young man who reported to the police number 3 incident, the crash, and those young farmers, were certainly not lying. They were a highly skeptical group. They did not believe in flying saucers if they'd heard of them. But they did say that there were these objects in the sky. They had their times down pat. I mean, we'd say, well, what time was it? They said, well, let me see now. Dawn comes at so, and I usually put my porch light on at so that would make it, and they pin it down within the minute. And they all jibed all over. And their descriptions gave exactly the course of these things on an aerial map. And I don't think those people were lying. I do think there were those 6 objects there. But what they were, of course, I have the foggiest notion. The last payoff was, John, this, that we did have this funny white stuff analyzed. My friends took it down to one of the labs in Monsanto, and they couldn't be much better there. They had this enormous spectrographic analysis machinery. They were unable to find out what it was. It seemed to be of a plastic nature, but to be of an organic structure. The only thing they could think was that it looked more like the dried up skin of a snake's egg than anything else. Howsoever, one of the lab assistants down there managed to soften it up. They've been trying to soften it up in everything. He said, why don't you try water? Which they did. And one of these little rolls of stuff, which were only about the size of my little finger, when stretched out, measured 9.5 inches. And I would like to know what snake's egg found in the United States or anywhere else from which you could get a strip 9.5 inches long. The parting shot was a humorous one made by John DuBarry. When I told him about all this, he said, uh-oh, perhaps they were space people, but perhaps they're reptiles and were looking for somewhere to lay an egg.
Well, our thanks to Ivan Sanderson and also Long John Nebel. This is a program that was made in about 1953, recapturing the investigation that Ivan made of the Braxton County monster in September of 1952. Ivan Sanderson, the famous author, world-famous traveler, geologist, biologist, and has written many books about the unexplained, unidentified flying objects and many other things. He did this story for True Magazine at that time and the North American newspaper Alas. They did this program on WOR in New York City. Long John Nebel show at that time for our program, which we were doing here in Charleston on the all-night program. This was an answer to a group of students at Morris Harvey College, and Tom Baumgartner and other people would like us to repeat the famous Braxton County monster at Flatwoods, West Virginia in September 1952. Thank you for listening. Good night to all.
This rare audio recording is brought to you by UFOTV.com and the Spirit Culture Preservation Project. UFO TV and Spirit Culture, preserving the sacred in art and culture through technology.